All right, friends, here we are for our building portion of the sealed with Newmont little draft, or rather sealed exercise. What I like to do is just sort things by rarity online. So we're going to start off with that. And as you can see, this pool is, well above average. We have 3 mythics, one of them being Nahiri, and 5 other rares, all of which are pretty playable. After I pull down the rares, I like to, get a sense of what colors I'm drawn to, but not necessarily playing. I look at my individual colors and pull out all of the cards that I think are playable in those individual colors. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through and pull down the cards that I think are playable, especially in sealed. Watcher in the Web are good. And things I'm looking for, removal spells, powerful creatures, and how deep that color is. Deep meaning, how many playables am I getting out of this color? Because the fewer playables that you have, well, the less likely you are to play it. So even though almost all of my green cards are playable, maybe I don't have enough, or maybe they're not coherent enough with the other colors that I want to run. So we'll take a look. Red obviously looks insane. I mean, I opened Wolf of Devil's Breach and Assembled Alpha, 2 of the best creature rares, and then I see a bunch of removal and good creatures already. Again, this is just the initial phases where, at least what I do, is I pull down what I think are playables into the main deck section on Magic Online, or even in paper if I'm like at a GP or something. This is what I do. I'll pull out all of the playable cards, and then afterward take out the cards that are maybe questionable, or ones that are maybe just, don't mesh well with whatever else I'm going to do. So far, again, it's going to look like most colors are playable to some degree, but we'll see how it goes overall. Again, it's like some of these cards are, I wouldn't call them great, but they're playable, such as this Silberlin Snapper. All right, Give No Ground, Binder, Double Dawngryph, Cathar. Not a big fan of Not Forgotten Drifter's fine. That's fine. This is one of the best white cards, by the way. Blessed Alliance. Just does so much work. Can lead to some huge blowouts. That's fine. As for fixing, I only have Warped Landscape. What I've generally found in this format is that I tend to run 18 lands, so keep that in mind, or at least I'm going to keep that in mind. I think already right off the bat, I have to play red. It is super deep. It has good removal in the form of, let's take a look, Galvanic Bombardment, Incendiary Flow, Uncaged Fury is pseudo removal, but then you have other cards like Spreading Flames, which 7 mana is a lot, but it is worth it in this format. Plus, some of my creatures act as removal, like the Wolf of Devil's Breach that we mentioned earlier, as well as the Assembled Alphas, just makes it so hard to block. So I think red is almost certainly going to be making the deck, plus 2 of our other mythics. Like all 3 of our mythics are red, so just note that. I think blue can automatically be cut. If you take a look at it, yes, it has a fine card like Wharf Infiltrator and some other okay playables, but overall, the power level is just really low, and I don't think it's something that you want to be doing. Now, obviously, we could go a lot deeper. We could tell you individually, card by card, why this is not great, but I can just tell, looking off the bat, that blue is not something you want to play here. So let's cut the blue out of the equation. Let's look at some of our Emerge or colorless cards, because sometimes, or most often, honestly, these cards are not playable on their own unless you can pay their Emerge cost. So we have a green and a black one. Otherwise, that's fine. I've had some real interesting opinions on Stitcher's Graft. I think some people think it's great. Other people think it's terrible. I'm in the camp thinking that it's great, but my experiences with it thus far have been very good. And a lot of the decks I've been running have like defenders and whatnot. So remember, the creature doesn't untap if it attacks. You can still use it tap abilities and whatnot. So I could put it on like a Thermo Alchemist and have a 3/6 blocker that can still deal damage. So yeah, we're going to be looking to play red here, I think, for sure. Let's look at removal in other colors. Black has Borrowed Malevolence, and that's it. I have 2 Midnight Scavengers, but I don't even have one of the Graph Rats. I think the Scavengers are completely playable on their own as a 3/3 pseudo Gravedigger, but it looks like black here is just going to be a very easy cut. It's not very deep, and the 1 removal spell is not even hard removal. So I think black is another easy cut here. And now we're taking a look at white or green to pair with our red. I'm going to move the red over here because, again, I think it's a for sure play. Like, it's just too hard not to with all that good removal and the creature quality. But the question is, what do we want to pair it with? Now, let's take a look at green. We have Prey Upon, Clear Shot for removal. We also, if we end up playing green, get Ulrich and Id of the Horrid Swarm, which, you know, definitely something to note. I guess I can probably put Abundant Maw into the sideboard since that's black. For white, I get Blessed Alliance and Bruna. Like, not great, but not terrible. It also gives me Nahiri. Now, the thing is, are one of these cards we're splashing for? So, say, if I go red-white, would I splash for Ulrich? Only having Warped Landscape as fixing? I don't know. Maybe. If I go red-green, on the other hand, I do get access to Lone Dryad and Primal Druid as additional fixing if I want to splash the Nahiri. So, let's take a look. Again, we for sure think we're playing red, but I want to look at the two color combinations here. Let's take a look at red-green first. Sort of by converted mana cost, see how the spread looks. We have a lot of 3-drops, quite a few 5-drops. I think immediately we can probably cut a card like Incorrigible Youths out of our red deck. We don't have any discard outlets, and a 5-mana 4/3 haste is not that great, and I already wanted to cut some 5-drops. Double Watcher on the Web is fine, especially if we want to go later in the game, which I think we do. So we'll consider that okay. If we look at our 4s, well, the Duelist kind of goes with the Incorrigible Youths. It's pretty aggressive. Now, these are just cuts I would make in general, I believe. It's possible the red-white deck would be more aggressive, and I'd want to run these. But for now, in the red-green list, this is what we would be cutting. Woodland Patrol is a 3/2 Vigilance for 3 is kind of filler. Convicted Killer is also filler. I think the Kindred's just very good. You know, it can make it self-indestructible, and I do have some other werewolves that it gets value with. I'm not a huge fan of Grit, but it is, I think, okay if you have the bombs to warrant it, and I think we do. Alphas, Wolf, Ulrich, and even just like Double Watcher in the Web is fine to protect, so we'll leave that here, maybe consider it. Other 3-drops, not the biggest fan of Bloodbriar, especially in this deck. I'm not really sacrificing anything. I think I have one way to investigate. No, not even. So the Bloodbriar is not really doing much unless I emerge off of It of the Horrid Swarm. Our 2-drops are all great. Incendiary Flow is removal spell. Thermal Alchemist is just a decent defender that just deals a ton of damage to the opponent over the course of the game. I think Primal Druid is great, again, as an early defender. We're not looking to be aggressive in this list, and being able to ramp out, produce an emerge creature, or also potentially finding a splash of Splash Nahiri is very solid. If we look at our 1-drops, I am a fan of Otherworldly Outburst, but I don't think it's necessarily a card we want in this version. Our creatures are already huge, so we're not looking for this slight value that the Outburst provides. I'd probably cut Lone Dryad here if I'm not splashing Nahiri. And otherwise, I do like all of these 1-drops. I think Borrowed Hostility is probably the most cuttable out of all of those. This still leaves us with some decent green tricks in Prey Upon and Clear Shot. Clear Shot just being the best of them, and we all still have the best of our white, or rather red cards. I think it comes down to like cutting the Stitcher's Graft, which I think is, again, good, but not necessarily great in this deck. It's very solid like on a Watcher of the Web, or Watcher in the Web, which is a good consideration. I guess Stencia Innkeeper is also kind of fillerish. I think I do want to run 18 lands in this type of deck. And so if I was going to go red-green, I think this is probably somewhat close to what I would build. I think that because if this is sealed, you do generally want to go with power. So I think Nahiri would probably want to make it in the deck, which makes any Madness card a little bit better. But I'm still not going to run the Incorrigible Youths. That being said, if I bring in Nahiri, I think I want to also bring in the Lone Dryad, just as a way to ramp, but also as a way for fixing. In fact, Lone Dryad might want to just make the deck anyways if I'm not running the Nahiri. So this is just a sample idea if I was going through the motions and gonna build like a red-green deck here. I want to take a look at red-white now, because I think again those were the two options I have. And let's put these back in. I'm gonna put all of these red cards back in because again we don't know. We know we're playing red, but we don't know what else we're doing. So we'll put those over here. And again, white gives us access to a few removal spells and Bruna. And this deck looks like it would probably want to be more aggressive, but I still have such top end that 18 lands is probably still good. Give no ground is probably an easy cut. Geist might be an easy cut in this type of build. We're looking to cut some of these one drops. Standard Bearer, not very good. Strength of Arms, not great, but okay-ish. I do have 2 equipment that I considered running. I probably wouldn't want to run double Outburst, but again, it's a consideration. We have a lot of aggressive cards for sure. I guess Convicted Killer's not that good. Ox is not that good in a more aggressive deck. Does this look better than the green? Gives me, I think, slightly better creature. No, that's not even true. In fact, I can already just tell that white is going to be worse than green here. White, again, just giving me the Blessed Alliance and Bruna. Whereas green gives me Prey Upon, Clear Shot, which are, well, Clear Shot is an insane removal spell. Plus green has some nice top-end cards. Like, these can really buy you a game. Solitary Hunter and Shrill Howler can just win the game by themselves. And then Ulrich and whatnot are also fine. So it looks like white's probably just going to get the axe here. No pun intended. And then I'll make the cuts that I had previously made. Cutting the Duelist, the Innkeeper, and the Incorrigible Youths. And I think we are going to splash for the Nahiri. So let's put the green back in, along with the other cards we were going to play already. And we need to make 3 cuts here. Now remember, because this is sealed, and especially because it's Magic Online, you can save individual decks. So I could save the deck like this and play it. I could also save a different deck. I could save the red-white deck and play that as well. And if you're in these leagues, you can always change the deck that you play for game 1. You don't have to be stuck with something. Now, if this was a GP, if you were at a Grand Prix or any higher-level competitive event, you would have to stick with the deck that you submitted first, and then for games 2 and 3, you could sideboard out differently. But on leagues on Magic Online, you can change up your decks. So just to note. Anyways, we're looking to cut, I think, 3 cards here. If we take a look at our spread of creatures versus non-creature spells, we get this. I think the Graft, again, is something I can cut. I don't love it, but I think we can cut it. Our creature quality is already so high at the top end. Another card I think we can cut, but also a card that is just very solid is Vessel of Nascency. I don't have any synergy with the Vessel. I have no ways to get things back from the graveyard, and I don't have any Delirium. So it's possible I want to cut that, but this does dig deeper for our bombs, which is relevant for sure. I could also consider cutting Uncaged Fury. I think this is better in aggressive decks, and while it could be very, very potent in our deck, I don't think it's a necessary combat trick. So I think the Uncaged Fury can probably get the cut. And then, this is interesting. So many options in sealed. Again, I think the red here is a for sure play. The Nahiri, I'm going out on a limb on splashing, but with Warp Landscape, Primal Druid, and Loam Dryad, I don't think it's that bad. One more cut to be made here. I know a lot of people don't like the Geistfield Scarecrow, and it is maybe a slightly awkward here when I have 6 creatures that cost 5 or more, so that could be a cut. I do think the Geistfield Scarecrow is just very solid by itself, but I know people who don't like it. Another card that is kind of polar in its, well, the ways people think about it is Eternal Scourge. 3/3 for 3, I can cast it from exile, but if it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, I exile it. So if they have, like, a Sigardian Priest, well, that kind of hoses you. So I think I might cut the Eternal Scourge out of the main. I do think it's a fine playable card, but I might just cut it here. I'm not actually sure what other considerations I could have. Maybe the Cultist Staff. This is another card that I think is very good and people don't appreciate enough. It's Volshock Morningstar that costs 1 more to equip, and I think that card is just always going to be solid. I think the last few cards I'm considering cutting here are going to be either the Eternal Scourge, the Vessel of Nascency, the Cultist Staff. And I think the rest we want to leave as is. Remember, I'm looking to run 18 lands here. What's the worst? I don't know if I want to cut a creature, so Scourge might just stay in as a 3/3 for 3. And I'm just a huge fan of the staff, but Vessel is great, and our creatures are already so big. I really hate cutting the Stitcher's Graph too, just to note. So cutting Cultist Staff as well is really going to pain me if I do that. But I think Vessel probably makes it in this deck. Staff or Vessel? God, it's so close. The Staff is just so good with like the Shrill Howler too. Okay. You know what? I don't have any Delirium. I know this might be incorrect. I'm going to cut the Vessel, and I'm going to run the Cultist Staff. So this, I think, is going to be my build for this sealed pool. I'm interested in seeing how you guys did it in the comment section. We are definitely running Warp Landscape here. We're going to run 1 Plains, and the rest we can run Forests and Mountains. Let's see. We have 2 double red cards, and I think we can probably go 8/8 here. 8/8/1 with the Warped Landscape seems fine to me. 8 should be plenty to hit double red by turn 5 for the Wolf of Devil's Breach. It might be a little bit awkward with the Smoldering Werewolf, but we have a pretty even number of red and white, or rather red and green cards that we want to cast early, so I think 8/8/1 plus the Warped Landscape is a good mix. And so this is going to be my final build for our very first edition of Sealed with Newmont deck building. Hopefully, you guys came to a similar conclusion, but if not, hey, that is completely fine. Remember, Sealed has so many options, and it's always interesting to see the varying styles of how other people would build their decks. I'm sure some of you have red-white decks that are very aggressive. Hopefully all of you are playing red, because I think red is just insane in this pool. But again, I'm interested in seeing how you guys built it. Please leave your deck builds in the comments section, and maybe I might even choose a winner, quote unquote, for who came up with the best arguments for the deck that they built, and we'll give them some prizes, a draft set on MTGO. But this is going to be my build. I hope you guys were entertained by this little sealed exercise. Again, the first portion of the video you can watch up top. And I want to hear your thoughts and comments on my build as well as your build. Thanks for tuning in. Check out all of the other content here on Newmont Gaming. This is Kenji Egashira, Numatanami, signing out.